Jesus sent the Holy Spirit to be our counselor and to give us power to build his kingdom. When you walk in the Spirit, you access the intelligence, the heart, and the will of God.
Third session regarding healing from rejection in our series on healing from hurts. And tonight is the night where God will give you the answer to get rid of any spirit of rejection that has bound you up, that has had you bound for years. God is going to speak to us tonight about how to get that spirit broken. Amen? Amen. Amen. Let's start with Psalm 27:10. And it says, even if my father or mother abandon me, the Lord will hold me close. Yeah. Did you hear what he just said? Yeah. He said, even if my mother or father abandon me, I can depend on the Lord. When I can't depend on my mother and father, I can depend on the Lord. Yeah. That's a comforting thought. If you've been abandoned by your mother or your father, to know that no matter what happened, the Lord said, I'm right there with you. Amen? Amen. He not only said, I'm with you, he said, I'll hold you close. That's so good to be praised, God. Now listen to this. Rejection creates deep wounds that are very painful. The pain from the experience of rejection will not just go away without healing. Many people are stuck or locked in time. Yeah. Desperately needing to be set free from the pain of past rejections. I remember the Lord gave me about 10 years ago, he gave me a sermon, and it's one of my favorite sermons. And the title of that sermon is Stuck in a Moment. Stuck in a moment. So many people don't realize they're stuck in moments of time when they were hurt or wounded or injured and they were rejected. You got stuck. Even though time kept moving, you got stuck. And people sometimes don't even know that they're stuck in a moment. Until healing occurs, you will live life as though you are still being rejected. Pain holds you to the time when you experience the rejection. The pain of it, it holds you, it locks you in right there. Yeah. This causes you to feel as if you are still being rejected today, even though it may have been 20 years since the original rejection took place. It still feels as fresh as it did back then. Have you ever been hurt or rejected, and every time you think about it, you could feel the pain of that thing? Years later. It was if it was just like it was yesterday. And that's what happens to so many people. Now, John 1:11 says this. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. Yeah. That's right. Now, who are we talking about here? Jesus. Yeah. Jesus. See, Jesus said, I understand your pain of rejection. He said, because I experienced rejection. He said, I was rejected the whole time I was here on earth. Yeah. I was healing the sick. I was raising the dead. I was casting out demons. I was feeding the hungry. I was doing all these things, and people were still rejecting me. He said, not only did the strangers reject me, he said, my own family rejected me. Yeah. His own relatives. You had other people that appreciated Jesus better than his own kinfolk. He said when he went into his hometown, he said, I could not do many miracles. He said because they said, oh, that's just Jesus. That's just the carpenter's son. That's that old Jesus. He said, and I couldn't do many miracles there. He said, my own relatives rejected me. See, those who suffer from the pain of rejection over time will become weary. The longer you suffer with rejection, it will begin to wear you down, and you will become weary in your life, and then it begins to spill over in your relationships, and it begins to spill over in your relationship with your children and with your family and on your job, and you get weary because, see, the spirit of rejection is a heavy spirit. It's a deep wound when somebody rejects you. But listen to this. One way many people try to get rid of the pain of rejection is just forget what happened and try to block out the person who hurt them. You ever hear people say, out of sight? Out of mind. Out of mind. Don't you believe it? Don't you believe it?
That's right.
You can tear that person out of your address book. And for a while, you will be able to forget what happened. However, if healing did not occur, the pain is still there.
That's right.
Still there. And I want you to think about areas of your life where you were rejected. And we can think of many areas. He said the pain is still there. Another way many people deal with pain is to run from it or pretend it really isn't there. See, pain is like a shadow. You look around and it's still there no matter how fast you run. You ever tried to run from your shadow? You can't do it. Because every time you move, it moves. You move over here, it moves over here. And you move over here, and it moves over here. Yeah. And that's how pain is. It'll follow you. See, some people say, you know what? I'm going to leave and go to another state. Anybody know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I'm going to leave all these knucklehead people behind, all these people that's hurt. I'm going to leave them right in this other state, and I'm going to me a new place, and I'm going to start all over again. And then you get to your new place. You get in your new house. You might buy you some new furniture, buy you some new dishes, buy you some new curtains. All right. But the same old you is still there.
That's right.
That same old you showed up again. You said, wait a minute, I'm in a whole new place with some whole new furniture. Got a brand new car. But the pain is still there. Because it follows you like a shadow. But listen to this. Pain must be faced to be healed. You may have received some healing, but the pain still remains. The losses you have experienced in the rejection are one source of pain. Give an example of the losses that you can receive as a result of rejection. Childhood. Some people say, you know, I lost my whole childhood because of pain. I remember a young lady. She lives in another state. You don't know her. And she was growing up in the South. And this young lady, at the age of 8 years old, she said, I could cook a whole meal. Her mother had a lot of children. Her mother would leave her to take care of the children, and she would take care of the kids, and she'd clean the house. And if that wasn't enough, her father raped her. Oh, my God. And she had a son by her own father. Oh, my God. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And she had to make the decision, do I keep this baby? But she was a young girl, and she had to grow up looking at this baby, knowing that it was her father's child. You talk about pain. Mercy. That's some pain right there. I've heard some stories that will amaze you, and maybe not. Maybe you have your own story. But when things like that happen, this young lady was robbed of her childhood. Because at 8 years old, she said, my mother would stand me up on a box and I'd have to wash dishes and cook a meal for the whole family at 8. Then she got pregnant as a teenager by her father. She had no childhood. What a loss. Other losses we experience are relationships. Relationships that you thought were going to be there forever. It could be a relationship as far as relationship with a man or a woman, or it could have been a relationship with a marriage, or it could have been divorce. It could have been a relationship with a friend. It could have been relationships that you lost with family members, because you have family members that go for years and never speak to one another. That's a loss.
Oh, yeah.
If you've got a relative and you're not talking to that relative, and that relative is not talking to you, and what we'll say is, you know, I don't care. I really don't care. I don't ever have to talk to them again. I'm going on with my life. That's a loss. It's a loss. Another loss, as I said, of friendships. Another loss, you lose your parents. Another kind of loss is identity. There are some people lose their identity trying to live with somebody and please them. They actually lose their identity. Often this happens in domestic violence because many times people who are caught up in it, primarily they're women, when they get caught up in domestic violence, they are so busy trying to please this person, hoping that I can do enough to please them and that they will like me, and that they try to figure out whatever I can do to make them happy, and they lose themselves. Another loss. So when you have these losses because of rejection, the pain is very, very deep. You cannot forgive completely until you grieve what you lost. Isn't that something?
Oh, yeah.
As long as you still feel the pain, there is still more to grieve and release. Healing is like peeling an onion. With tears, you peel it one layer at a time. And so he said, you have to grieve your loss.
Yeah.
Why do we have to grieve the loss? Because many times people will pretend that the loss never took place. And they don't grieve the loss. And so therefore, they're living in a false world. They're living in a false pretenses. They're believing that it really didn't affect me, and I'm not going to let it bother me. And so they never grieved what they lost. For healing to begin, you must acknowledge and release the pain of rejection. What must you do? You must acknowledge and release the pain of rejection. For healing to continue, you must release the one who rejected you. Now let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that.
Now you said, wasn't it enough that I acknowledge and release the pain of the rejection? No. Because if you don't release the person who rejected you, you will become bound up again. You can get free for a moment, but when that pain comes up because you didn't let that person go, it comes back and it binds you back up again. So it was like temporary. It was a temporary fix. How many ever thought you were over something and you thought it was a done deal? How many ever been there? You thought it was over. And all of a sudden it raised its head. You said, wait a minute. I thought I was over that. It was still there. Because you had not released the one who had rejected you. You tried to do it without releasing them. A person with a wounded spirit, and we talked about this last week, a person with a wounded spirit is one that is hurting, but one in which the hurt has festered into unbearable attitudes and responses. When you are in a wounded state, your wound is festering. It doesn't just, you don't get the wound, it stays in one place. It festers, it gets worse, it gets infected. And it causes you to have these attitudes. And so some of the attitudes that come out of that we talked about last week, or some of the characteristics that come out of a wounded spirit, are a negative mindset. The person with the wounded spirit is preoccupied with past injuries. He or she views incidents in life in the worst light. Negative mindset. You ever meet people that's negative about everything? Every time you talk to them, it's negative. Every time you talk to them, they're complaining. It's negative. Negative mindset. That's a result of a wounded spirit. Another result of a wounded spirit is victim reasoning. Remember we talked about being a victim? It says with a wounded spirit, a person views themselves as the victim. I am a victim no matter what. And you need to attend to me. Because I'm the victim. And so your whole life becomes about you and your pain because I'm the victim. And you should understand that I'm hurting, even though I'm acting crazy. You should still understand my pain because I'm the victim here. Another result of wounded spirit are blame tactics. A person with a wounded spirit holds other people responsible for their misery in his or her life. In other words, it doesn't matter what they do and how they act. They say, I'm like this because of you. I act like this because of that person. The reason I act like that is because of Uncle Joe. The reason I act like that is because of my mother. The reason I act like that is because of my father. And it doesn't mean that there's not an element of truth in there. But what happens is when they face with any opposition, position, they will always blame somebody else, and they find it difficult to take responsibility for their own actions.
Yes.